Hi, everybody. This is Mark from Itheum. I wanted to give you a quick update of a new feature which has released. The feature is called Personal Data Proofs, and it enables you to gain personal data proofs within your smart contracts. And that lets you make some decisions in real time and build some logic that can action transactions within your contract using real world data that's coming direct from your end users. So let's see how this works, and I'll share a bit more about how this fits into our overall vision to be the world's first decentralized data brokerage. So if you jump to our white paper from here, you can read more about this concept here of enabling personal data proofs within smart contracts. I'm not going to go into the actual text right here. Instead, I would give you I got a few slides that would quickly walk you through this. So personal data proofs, what is it, right? So if you want to move more real world use cases into the blockchain, your smart contracts would need personal data to make certain types of decisions. In this example here, let's say you have a loan issuing DApp, which is kind of based on a DAO maybe, and you need to know some personal details about the loan applicant before you actually approve that application. Well, services like Chainlink are great at this. They bring real world data into the blockchain. But in scenarios where you want personal data direct from the user and not through an intermediary or through intermediary that's been verified by oracles, you want it direct from your end user, then you could use what's called a personal data proof, which Ethereum enables. So in this case here, you are actually I'll walk through a more detailed example soon. So think of personal data proofs as real world personal data that's now within your smart contract ecosystem that enables you to access it, know more about your end users, and then make some key decisions. So like for just how like Chainlink enables this kind of functionality of real world data, Ethereum enables personal data proofs to be available within real into your smart contracts. And this functionality, as described here, is already available in our testnet. Okay, so let's have a look at an example which would make this a lot more clearer as to what it is. So in this slide here, we are looking at a workflow of how a home loan application happens today in the real world. So via a bank, right? So if I'm sure many of you have applied for home loans, are familiar with this process. So in this case, we have a borrower who applies for a loan with the bank. The bank then has to verify eligibility. And what that means is basically they're going to look at your loan default risk and they do an assessment, like basically what is the risk that this person is going to default their home loans and then cause a loss to the bank. So the way they do that currently is they use a data broker and they get your credit risk score, your FICO score, and once they're happy with that, they usually use some sort of loan broker to get you fill out a detailed loan application form, which it's about if they want to know about your financial history, your income history, your spending habits, etc. So they use all of that information to do your risk assessment, and then in this case, they determine that your eligibility is good. So the bank then approves your home loan, and then the borrower gets the home loan, they buy a house, and then they make their repayments. So that's how it happens in the centralized world. Now let's look at this exact same scenario ported onto DeFi or the blockchain world. And let's see how this could be simulated using smart contracts in a completely decentralized way and removing as many intermediaries as we can, right? So it all begins with some smart contract DeFi lending platform. And we got lenders here who are going to credit their funds into the platform. And then we have a borrower who comes and then applies for a loan, which is an application directly into the DeFi lending platform. And now because this is a bigger loan than the regular loans you see issued on smart contracts these days, which might be a smaller amount, which you can use then to buy other crypto assets. We're talking about a home loan here. So it's a bigger home loan. It's a bigger amount. So therefore, this DeFi lending platform has to do a more in-depth due diligence process into verifying whether is this person again going to default on their crypto home loan, or sorry, their decentralized home loan in this case, right? Or decentralized issued home loan. So the DeFi lending platform, which is something like a DAO, maybe in this case, does some on-chain loan approval process. And this is again to look at the loan default risk assessment of this user. So what would it do? Well, it could potentially call out to other smart contract DeFi services or dApps which leverage things like Chainlink and the graph, and they can pull your information about this borrower, right? Like what kind of assets do they have on chain, you know, the address activity, you know, the skills for this person to hodl, and the stake bond holdings and all of this. And this is important to know that this person has enough collateral to back this home loan, and also to kind of see, looking at patterns of their spending, for example, on chain, to know if they're quite stable at retaining and paying back credit. So that's something that would happen. First, we call these credit score proofs, but this is not sufficient, right? So because it's a vast loan to buy a house, they also need to know a bit more about this borrower, right? That, and this information is not available on chain. So they need and this is our value proposition, right? So the DeFi lending platform and its DAO members, to make a decision on if this borrower has good risk score, would have to know a bit more about their financial history, the income history, their spending habits, their family, their dependents, and their work history, etc. Exactly like our real world bank needs to know a bit more information about you before we can approve that loan. In this case, the DAO members would need to know a bit more information about you before they can approve that loan. And Itheum provides this use case. Itheum has a functionality called a data collection and analytics platform, which lets you build these kinds of data collection and makes those proofs available on chain. So here we say we have the credit score proofs and the personal data proofs from this applicant or this borrower. Then that goes into a DAO vote, which the DAO members of this DeFi lending platform can see all this information, and they determine, you know what, the eligibility looks good, and they pass it, and the loan is approved, repayments are made, and then the funds are sent back to the lenders with interest. So this is exactly the same outcome as the current centralized version of issuing loans, but completely decentralized and done on chain. We think it's pretty cool. So, but there's an additional really cool functionality about this. Now, all of these proofs that were issued or were generated by this borrower to apply for this loan is technically on chain now. And if you look at it, they theoretically exist in this person's wallet. And what is amazing about it now is that they can take these proofs into another DeFi lending platform and potentially refinance, or even better yet, there could be DeFi lending platforms that lets you upload your proofs or connect your proofs to it, and it'll find you a better deal on your home loan. So this in the real world is called refinancing. In the real world, it's done fully manually, right? You have to do it yourself, or you got to go through a home loan broker. Here, it can be done fully autonomously because all of these proofs exist on chain. All right, so let's look at another example of where personal data proofs will be very useful. And in this case, it's an example of health insurance via a completely decentralized blockchain platform. So again, in this scenario here, we got the pool funders who have deposited their funds into some blockchain insurance platform. And we get a customer who comes up and says, you know what, I want health insurance. I want to do this on the blockchain. And they apply for their health insurance. And again, we need to do some sort of DAO governance to assess the risk of this person from a health insurance perspective. So we go to an on-chain approval process. In the real world, in the insurance industry, this is called underwriting, where they're looking at your insurance risk or your applicant's risk. In this case here, we could then get health and wellness proofs of this customer. And this could be done very seamlessly through Itheum, which enables the building of this kind of data collection platforms. So we can get the customer's fitness and activity levels, for example, their blood pressure, their weight, their stress assessments, their diets, and we categorize this as health and wellness proofs. And then we can build more data collection programs on Itheum to find out more about this person, like the health and wellness questionnaire, any pre-existing health assessments. their family health histories. And again, this information is available for a DAO vote on chain via our personal data proofs. And in this case, the DAO members have voted that as sort of an underwriting activity, that this person's, based on this person's information, their monthly premium should be X, and the max payout we could give them is Y. And you can see the insurance is approved, and the customer makes their monthly premiums, and then a cut of that is then sent back to the pool funders. So this again shows how you can take real world complex scenarios and then put them into the blockchain and run it completely without any intermediaries. So these are some of the use cases of personal data proofs. With that, I'd like to very quickly jump into some code examples on how this is available. Well, actually, before that, let me just jump into our DataDex. If you go to datadex.itheum.com, which is running on testnets at the moment, you'll see these programs here. Think of them as the programs that collect the data proofs. So the Red Art Challenge, for example, is a program that collects health and wellness data, which can then be used as a health and wellness proof in an insurance product. And likewise, even our variable fitness activity, which can pull in all Strava information and can basically benchline your activity and fitness levels, can also be used in that example of health insurance. So with the Itheum, you can, as we have shown in our other demos, you can come and sell your own data from all of these programs, or you can even sell any arbitrary data set. And as you sell it, you get the opportunity to generate a proof out of it. So in this case, if I'm going to sell my Red Hat Challenge program data, which is all of the data about my activity, and I place it for sale, it generates a proof and puts it on the blockchain. In fact, let's see that happen right now. So if I go up here and I say I want to use this for fully licensed, because I want maybe a health insurance company to get this information from me, and I put it for sale on the blockchain, you can see that it's generating a proof of this data, storing it on chain. Yep, and you can see the data is actually placed for sale. So if I go to the advertised data, you can see the data that I've actually put up for sale right now. So anybody around the world can come and buy this in a peer-to-peer manner. But what an additional thing that's happened here is the personal data proofs. You'll notice that the proof from that program, in the instance it's called a proof source, has been placed on chain. And you can see the readable proof here, which is the actual raw data that can be verified, and the proof transaction, and the on-chain proof that's stored right here. Now, how is this useful? So in that example of the health insurance company, they essentially they build their decentralized health insurance platform. They link it to the proof source, which collects information about this end user's activity and fitness in this case. And they're able to make an on-chain decision based on the proof on if the data collected was authentic and if it was attested by the actual applicant of health insurance or the actual customer who's applying for the health insurance. So to give you an idea of how that happens in a smart contract level, let's have a look at some code. So firstly, I want to show you how Chainlink works, and I'm sure many of you have used Chainlink before, but if you haven't, think of Chainlink as an ability to bring real-world data into smart contracts and then make decisions based on the data. Chainlink calls this hybrid contracts because it operates with on-chain data, which is available on the blockchain, as well as off-chain real-world data attested by its decentralized Oracle network. So this is an example of a Chainlink demo. In this app, for example, they want to pull a price feed for ETH and USD from the real world. So the way it does is it implements an interface called the aggregator interface. And in this contract, you'll notice that there is a aggregator contract specific to pulling the ETH USD feed. And the way that this contract is going to get this real world data, then in this function up here, it calls the get latest round and it gets the real world price. So that's kind of how Chainlink works to bring real world data into smart contracts. Now, with that in mind, let's look at how the personal data proofs from Itheum come into real world contracts. So very similarly, you can pull up our data proofs interfaces. Itheum will soon support many different types of these personal data proofs. We have the very base version of the personal data proof, but we can bring in financial proofs, health and wellness proofs, and all of these things that are coming direct from an end user. And that's where we differentiate from Chainlink. Chainlink provides you aggregated data from known sources. Most of these are not sensitive or private or sensitive or personal. For example, price feeds, crop weather information, all of these things can come from Chainlink, third-party data sources. But if you want to bring in personal data, what you don't want to have an intermediary doing that for you. You want to directly give your data for an on-chain decision, and that's what Itheum enables. So in this case, you'll notice that we've simulated that home loan scenario. So this is a home loan lender, and you can notice that they implement a version of the interface, and it's called the personal data proof. They define a proof source. Now, keep in mind what I mentioned. A proof source is the origin of the data collected. So in this case, the structured data collection from the Red Hat Challenge program, which is the program I showed you right here, which brings really detailed information about health and well-being on-chain. So the proof source is flagged here, and you notice when the contract is launched, we're setting an interface of another contract from Itheum, which brings you the personal data proofs and makes it available for you to call in your source code. So the first thing the home loan lender would do in this case is they would set their proof source ID. So this again is the proof source ID of that, which this is the name of it, but it also has an ID associated to it. So we set the proof source ID, in other words, that's the source of the program I want to get the data from. And once they do that, at any time in their smart contract, they can call this function here, right? So if you can imagine the front-end app, which is the DAO-based dApp that's actually deciding on if this person should get this home loan, it says, it would say something like, have you completed this application form? In other words, the proof source form, it redirects them to that. The user collects it, submits their data into the Ethereum data DEX, which then reappears here. The event is triggered on chain, and then the home loan application, DeFi application, is able to detect that and then take the data that the user submitted and essentially verify that proof against Ethereum's original proof submitted directly from the user. And this is very key to understand, right? What we're verifying here is that what the user said directly originated from the user. And if we can do that, then we can make a decision right now and right here that this is authentic data, the provenance, the lineage, as well as the veracity of the data actually originated from the applicant, and I can make a decision. So using this single function here where they send in the proof source, the applicant, and the actual dApp entry proof that came from the front end, I'm able to get this here, and don't return price reason is verified. And if it's true, that means the result is by applicant and untampered. If the result if it's false, then it means it's been tampered or the user has not completed the application form, which is the proof source program, so the application is not ready to proceed. I know that was a lot, but I hope this kind of gives you an idea of how personal data proofs are going to revolutionize the certain use cases entering into the blockchain for the first time. Stuff like health insurance, stuff like home loan applications, all of these have been really hard to move into the DeFi space. And Itheum enables this through our tooling and our goal to become the world's first decentralized data brokerage. Thanks very much for your time. Goodbye.